Good afternoon. I'm Steve Golson, and I hope no one read what was in the brochure because it says that I'm going to talk about Ms. Pac-Man. So I guess the copy editor, which was probably me, didn't get to that. Let's start with a little history. There we go. So 1977, the VCS, Atari Video Computer System. It had a CPU with a program ROM, right? Cartridges, plug it in, sell the software separately. And that was a codename Stella, by the way. You probably know that. And then in 1982, oh gosh, the Atari 5200 Super System, to give it its full glorious name, codenamed Ham. And at that point, well, VCS had to get renamed, and so it was retro-named the 2600. That was not quite so successful. It had weird controllers. It wasn't backwards compatible with 2600. Great graphics, though. And so, oh gosh, 1984, Atari 7800 ProSystem, codenamed the 3600. We'll talk about that. Gee, what's that all about? Oh, it was the coolest thing, right? It plays the 2600 games without an adapter. Awesome. What an incredible idea. Who thought of that? Cool new graphics. Here's the back of the box. Somebody was asking about this earlier. Yes, she did that. Yes. You'd buy this, right? Yes, good job. It uses existing Atari computer peripherals, and it has better controllers, not the achy 5200 non-self-centering ones, and the fun is just beginning. Oh, boy, yes, you buy one of these. This is just the most awesome thing in 1984. And so Atari did the right thing. Plays 2600 games without an adapter, but who do we really have to blame for this? It's this weird little company called General Computer. General Computer Company, based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. About as far away as you can get from Atari, both physically and emotionally. So I was there. I'm gonna give you a little bit of the history of 7800 and how it came to be. So I have to give you the brief 3-slide history of General Computer. If you've heard some of my other talks, you've heard me go into this in more detail, but it starts with 2 MIT students in 1978 who lived in this dormitory, McGregor House. I lived in there with them. And Doug and Kevin started a partnership to bring pinball games initially and eventually video games to our dorm at MIT. And they got to be very successful with this as students. This was a great sideline, and they eventually were into 3 dormitories and had all sorts of games, pinball games, and eventually video games. And so, wow, this is a pretty cool way to make a little money on the side if you're a student. Well, one of the things in the arcade industry at the time were what were called speed-up kits, which were little kits you could buy if you were an arcade owner, and you could plug it in and it would make asteroids harder, or it would make Galaxians have more attacking objects, and make the game more difficult. So as the players got good at it, you could speed it up, enhance it, and you wouldn't have to scrap your game because those pesky players learned how to beat it. Asteroids, Galaxians, Pac-Man, all these, but Missile Command, there was no enhancement kit for Missile Command. And Doug and Kevin had 3 Missile Command games. They were like way popular at MIT. Nuclear war, rockets, explosions, it was a good way to relax. So, but they needed Missile Command kit, and they're calling these various companies, who makes a Missile Command kit? Nobody does. And finally Kevin and Doug are, hey, we go to MIT. I bet we could write one. So General Computer starts the end of, during spring break of 1981. They're still students, right? They're seniors. They're allegedly going to graduate in 2 months. Let's wait and see how that happens. So here's Super Missile Attack on one slide. So we developed this enhancement kit for Atari Missile Command. Started selling it in May. We sold about 1,000 units. That's about $250,000 profit. That's pretty good for just a couple months of hacking around. Atari noticed and sued us for $15 million. And we spent the summer in court and deposing Ray Kassar and various Atari people, and Atari eventually saw the mistake they were doing and they dropped their lawsuit, and they hired us to do game design for them. So, making a very interesting story into one slide, so there. But, so, boom. So as of October, we're not doing Super Missile Attack anymore. We're designing coin-op games products for Atari. But meanwhile, all summer long, we were working on our second kit, thinking that, oh yeah, we're going to keep doing enhancement kits. So in the middle of the lawsuit, we're developing this kit we call Crazy Otto for Pac-Man. In October, we gave a demo of it to Midway and signed an agreement with them. So, boy, October was a really good month for us because we signed deals with the top two coin-op manufacturers in the US, Atari and Midway. And it's looking more and more like dropping out of school was the right thing to do, which we all had by then. So, but Crazy Otto, you probably know by its more common name, Ms. Pac-Man. Had various name changes, and that became Ms. Pac-Man. So, 1982, as we watched the popularity of Ms. Pac-Man grow, meanwhile, we're doing coin-op design for Atari, and that was a good year. That was a good year. So anyway, so that's where JCC came along. So by early '82, we've got quite a bit of coin-op work that we're working on for Atari. We've got Molecular Magic, which turned into Quantum, coin-op game. Food Fight, which went into production, a game called Fireman that never went anywhere. All of these are coin-op projects. We're not doing anything for the home. In February, Ray Kassar is president of Atari. Manny Gerard is with the office of president of Warner Communications. Warner actually owns Atari, right? And it turns out that GCC's development agreement is not with Atari, it's with Warner Communications. I don't know, some weird reason why they decided to do that. So there's this little bit of separation. So Ray and Manny come early February and see there's like 15 of us in Cambridge. We've hired a few people at this point. And we're working away and showing off our projects. And Manny says, yeah, I'll be back in a month. I'm going to be in town. I'll come by and see what we're doing. So in the month of February, we just went absolutely insane putting in hours so that we could show off for Manny a month later. And so Manny and Skip Paul is a counsel, legal guy, a head legal guy at Atari. And so they come in the 1st of March, and Manny's like, we're like, oh yeah, we've been working, we've got a little bit more done on this project. And they were just completely blown away by how much work we had been able to do in a month. And they started thinking about, wow, these people in Cambridge are just magic. Look at what they can do. So what's going on at Atari in February 1982? Things are not really good for Mr. Ray Kassar. So remember, the Activision guys, they've already left. The iMagic guys left a year or so ago. And now another crew of Atari home VCS programmers is threatening to pack up and go. And he's going to have nobody left to program cartridges for him. So what's Ray going to do? Well, he picks up the phone. So Kevin Curran, this happened in early April. Kevin remembers this very clearly. He says he was at his accountant's office. Now, this is well before cell phones, right? And so Manny Gerard calls Kevin. He calls Kevin's office. Kevin's not here. He's at the accountant. What's the number? Calls Kevin sitting at his accountant's office. Kevin, can you design VCS cards? I don't know. How big are they? Oh, 4K bytes. Some of them are 2K bytes. How long is it going to take you? I don't know, a couple months. Excellent. Can you do 7 games by September? And they worked out a deal there on the phone. We'll pay you 7 cards. We'll pay you $70,000 per cart as an advance against royalties. All right, and everything's got to be done by September. Kevin's like, sure, yeah, we can do this, no problem. So the money was transferred the same day. This is how insanely serious Atari was about this. They're like, give us the account number so we can wire the money to you. Geez, okay, sure. All right. So right away, so we start working on various cards. right? They came up with what titles are you going to work on? Oh, well, we're going to, all right, here we go. All right. And so we start working on VCS cards. So, hey, here we are working on, who recognizes that game? What are they playing? Warlords, yeah. And you see the Rubik's Cube sitting on the table there? So, great, so we got to start buying Sony TVs and VCSs and start, when Kevin was on the phone, he's like, you're going to send us the documentation on this thing, right? How does this thing work? Oh, yeah, we'll send you everything. The money got there first. Let's see, this is a typical development system setup for VCS. That's a Contron microprocessor emulator and a Sony TV and a VCS sitting on top and the Intrepid programmer programming away. All right, so off we go doing VCS. Here's a meeting in June of 1982, brainstorming meeting, and at GCC. And the important thing, comment here is, let's see, Manny Girard tells us we can shape the future by inventing it. And he sees General Computer climbing up and down the corporate ladder at Atari, basically generating product for Atari. So we're brainstorming, and what's the first brainstorming idea? New entertainment base units to replace VCS. Okay, so we're already thinking about this in '82. That might be a cool thing to do. September, just as promised, we deliver cartridges. Gee, I forgot Miss Pac-Man. Miss Pac-Man was in there too. And also a proposal for something we called the extended RAM cartridge, which was a way to add more RAM to the poor VCS. So VCS has 128 bytes of RAM. Kilobytes, not megabytes. 128 bytes of RAM. But I had one VCS programmer who says, no, that's not how you look at it. You look at it as 1,024 bits. Each bit is this precious thing that you hoarded. And so anything that could add more memory. So we're already thinking about hacking up VCS. What could you do to VCS to make it better? All right, so this is mid-'82. Late '82 and into '83, we start working with this company called VLSI Technology Incorporated, or VTI. And they came in and they pitched and they said, oh, hey, anybody can do chip design, VLSI design, integrated circuit design. And there's these new techniques, Meade-Conway design techniques and rapid turnaround, and they've got this fab, they can do chips quickly. And we're like, that sounds pretty cool. So we started this in-house capability to do chip design and started thinking about, wow, if we could do custom chips, what kind of products could we develop? Oh, the October 18th meeting, they met with us, they sat down and they said, yeah, you know, we run these 4-week design classes where you come in and you learn how our tools and learn chip design. Oh, when's the next class start? Oh, well, it starts today. Today's the first day. Oh, really? 4 hours later, I was on a plane to California to take the class. I missed the first day. I got the rest of the 4 weeks. And VTI people were like, wow, we thought Silicon Valley people moved fast. This was pretty amazing. They'd never seen that. So I took this class. So what to do with our newfound chip design techniques, right? So I went and took this 4-week class. I came back to GCC. We ran a 3-week class of our own in January where we brought people up to speed, taught them how to use the tools and whatnot. What are we going to do? Hey, we had this idea for something we called Spring. Was our code name for it. Now PAM is a 5200, right? What are we going to do that's beyond PAM? So we had this idea called Spring. It needed lots of custom chip design. So we're thinking about Spring and we're diving in. This is going to be cool. We pitched it to Kevin and Doug, and off we go. And we're just going to create this thing, and it's going to be a game machine, personal computer. It's going to be awesome. Who's ever seen the Mindset computer? You ever heard of something called the Mindset? It actually had a very similar architecture to this. And when the Mindset came out, like, ooh, Spring. That's what it would look like. The graphics is very much like arcade graphics. It's not the player missile stuff that was in 2600 and 5200. It's what we call a line RAM, a single line of graphics generated on the fly. And that's the way most of the arcade games work. So that was our idea for spring. Okay? By January, that's a bunch of us who were doing chip stuff and proposing what spring was going to look like. All right. And we're in the middle, right now we're in the middle of our 3-week design class there at GCC in Cambridge. I'm running this along with some videotapes and our tools and teaching the guys, imparting the wisdom that I got from the VTI class. And so we're just going crazy thinking of how we're going to do custom chips. But, you know, isn't there something, I don't know where this came from, Kevin or Doug or someone, you know, spring is going to be wonderful, but isn't there something we could do quickly to help out the poor 2600? You know, we could better graphics, but it'd be backward compatible with the 2600. And 5200's not selling as well as we'd like, and that compatibility thing is a problem. What can we do? We'll call it TIA Plus, right? Or Pre-Spring Fling was one name, which wasn't original with us. It was actually the name of a semi-formal dance that was held at MIT. They called it the Pre-Spring Fling. So we grabbed that name. Oh, that's kind of cool. So that's what we'll call it. So what's the Pre-Spring Fling going to be? Well, you just take TIA and add more players to it. Okay. Or you add a scanline buffer. Or, oh, well, you want compatibility, just put damn TIA on the board and then do whatever you want for your spiffy new graphics. And that's how you get your compatibility. You don't have to make a graphics engine that's compatible. You just put a TIA chip on the board. And at that point, it's like, oh, all this revelation. That's how you get your compatibility. So that's what we're going to do. We'll hack this out quickly, and then we'll get back to spring, what we really want to build. So we're going to build this custom chip. Well, what's our custom chip going to be called? Right? This is like the first thing you have to come up with. What's your chip name for this pre-spring fling graphics chip? Well, what's in 2600? It's the TIA. It's called TIA, Television Interface Adapter. And our name points out there's this really cool coffee rum liqueur, Tia Maria. And we said, oh, well, if there's already TIA, then clearly our chip is going to be called Maria. And thinking ahead that at some point there would be a combo chip. You'd have like a single chip with both sets of functionality on it. And that chip, well, we already know what name it's going to be. That's going to be called Tia Maria. We'll have a bottle of rum liqueur. Off we'll go. You'll also see it codename the name Ginger, because that was the Maria was the GCC Atari name for it, but VTI they called it Ginger because they wanted the code name to have the same first name as the company that was doing the design. GCC, I don't know. So we came up with Ginger. I don't know where that came from. So what's in Maria? So Maria is a double line RAM. So it has 2 lines. It's not a bit map. Ooh, too much memory for that. 1 line of graphics. And it's busy building 1 line of graphics while the other line is being scanned out. So it's a double buffered, 2 lines of graphics. It's going to have really cool sound. It's going to have DMA with a display list to decide what to load in on each scan line. But it's compatible with the color of TIA. It uses the same color phase shifter and the color generation logic as TIA. Again, thinking down the road to when they're all on 1 chip, you don't want to have 2 different sets of analog magic in there. And we certainly didn't want to design that ourselves. And notice it had sound. Like, yeah, we're not going to put up with that 2600 crappy sound anymore. We're going to have our own really cool synthesis chip. We'd actually already done a synthesis chip at this point in Gatorade technology. So we were well versed in what are we going to do for sound. The system, I don't know where this code name came from, but 3600. It's 2600 but better, so 3600 system. It's completely 2600 compatible because it's got TIA on the board. It's got more RAM, and we're going to add extra pins to the cartridge slot so that you get the full addressability of the processor. You get the read-write line, so you can put more stuff out there, and better graphics and sound for Maria. So it's compatible, not 2 slots, 1 slot, plug it in, off you go. So we thought about how to make this work. Gary Boone. So his nickname, we nicknamed him Darth Vader. That's sort of how he behaved. Keep us in line. So Gary Boone was brought in by VTI as our adult supervision. Because all us newbie chip designers, we took their class and we believed them that made us chip designers and we could do anything. And they were like, oh my God, these kids believed it. Oh geez. So they found someone who was an actual chip designer to come in and show us, keep us all in line. Became a very good friend of mine and mentor for many years. So Gary Boone. By April 6th, here's an email from Gary. Enthusiasm is great. These guys work at all hours, Gary observed. Yeah, that's what they taught us at MIT. So by April, this is April, we're thinking, we're so insanely crazy, we think we're going to have this done by December 1983. And it's already April. Right. So, okay, December 83, that's our goal here. But even by April, he's saying, yeah, Atari, we're already thinking Atari's going to screw it up. And it's going to be December 84. But it'll still be a great product. Right? This is quick. This is going to be a quick hack. Get it out the door. Help out 2,600 sales, which are slumping. So, is there sound? This is some of the sound. This is when? Early April. I'm not really sure when sound got jettisoned from Maria. But basically we ran out of room and time. And so fairly early in the process we said, you know what, we'll solve the sound another way. And I'll talk about it a bit later. But it was still there by then. So what's going on in April through June of '83? We're working on the Maria chip design. We're working on a TTL breadboard of the Maria so we can start software development even before the chip is available. Working on the game system, and we're starting up all these cart designs. Software development for all these different carts. And also thinking about, oh hey, you want a hack on top of a hack? We can make this into a home computer. So what can we do for that? What sort of software and what's the hardware going to be required to put a keyboard on this thing? And at this point, by this point, Spring is kind of on hold, right? For a while, both projects are running in parallel. We've got Spring as the main effort, and we've got this handful of people who are hacking on Maria. And at some point, it's like, you know what? Forget Spring. Maria is the goal. Let's get this done. So that's what's happening. So Maria, oh, we need a part number for Maria. The name's not enough. What's going to get printed on the package as the Maria part number? Well, we're all Star Trek fans, right? NCC 1701. Well, you only have to change one letter. GCC 1701. So that was our name. That was the part number for Maria. So that's what we call it. And again, that never got through to VTI. VTI put their own part number on it, which I think was 2048. But that was our internal numbering for it. GCC 1701. That's what we're going to call it. So in July, we tape it out. That's insanely quick, from early April to July, to get this complexity of design done. Got parts back, and it was completely functional. There was one depletion implant that was missing, but it didn't really affect the functionality of it. We were able to get it up and running. One small problem. Top couple lines there. It has become apparent that the current Maria architecture requires too much CPU time to allow effective use of its display. Basically, Maria allowed you to display this huge number of objects on the screen, but it used up all the CPU to do it. And there wasn't any CPU left to do gameplay. And so what are we going to do? You can put a lot on the screen, but there's no time to move it. There's another quote from Tom there. So what are we going to do? Oh, Maria 2. All right, we'll hack this out. We'll get this done quickly. So what can we do that uses most of the design work we've already done for Maria and fixes this problem? And basically adds a level of indirection to the design. If you're a designer, I can tell you about it. So we'll hack this out in a couple months, right? Oh, and this makes the computer a lot more capable because it gives you a static display. Maria does the display completely static without any CPU intervention. Why didn't we think of this to start with? I don't know. So anyway, here's what we're going to do. So this is a mid-July status report. New part number, it's not 1701, it's 1702, because it's Maria 2. And, duh, yeah, okay, who came up with that one? Bottom line, we will succeed, but not as soon as we expected. So now it's pretty clear. All right, December 84, Christmas 84, that's the goal here, okay? So Maria 2, we taped out in mid-September, like a day late or something, and got our parts back a couple weeks later. Much support from the VTI people. VTI was hugely behind us getting this design. They gave us an enormous amount of support because they saw Atari as a great market for them. They were making ROMs for Atari cartridges, and they really wanted this enormous volume of business from Atari. And so they saw us as a way to get into Atari. And so they gave us a huge amount of support. So what's the 3600 look like? All right. Let's see. You need your software guide, which I have an original 3600 software guide here. It tells you how to program it and what's in it. So there's Sally, which is a custom 6502 that Atari had already been using in the 800 and the 5200. So that already existed. We didn't have to do that. More memory, TIA, and Maria. And, this 8-bit CPU is running at a blazing 1.79 megahertz. 8-bit processor, man, that thing is screaming. So, here's what it looks like. Here's one, the finished product. You can come up and look at this later. There's the Maria right there. This is an empty socket because that's where the processor emulator system plugs in. So that's 3600, or what it would look like. There's the plastic. I'm glad we had the previous presentation, if you heard that, talked about the package design. So GCC did the entire design. We did every part of the design, but not the plastic enclosures, because Atari already had that done. So like, excellent. How big does it have to be? It has to be this big, so it fits in the enclosure we've already designed. Like, all right, great. Off we go. And here's the compatibility. On the left is what a 2600 cartridge looks like. And on the right is what a 3600 cartridge. You see the 2 extra fingers. That gives you 8 extra pins on that cartridge. And so that's what makes it compatible. The old carts plug in just fine. The new carts plug in, and you get extra signals. Extra address, and read-write, and audio, video out there. Graphics. What's the graphics look like? 192 scan lines of 160 pixels each. You could actually, it could also do 320 pixels. So, you know, you're limited by the NTSC specification because it's got to be a TV, right? None of this composite video, RGB nonsense. It had to look like the TV signal that comes off of your antenna. And that has to be compatible going back to the 1953 black and white TV standard. So, all ages of TV, you guys with your 4K monitors, you don't know how easy you had it. So this is what we got. This is an April, what's it say, April document, I think? Incomplete. Wow, that's nice. So the target audience for this guided tour of how Maria worked. And so programmers, Atari executives, and us, because we would forget how the darn thing would work. So this is Maria. Confidential. Don't tell anyone. It's secret. But explanation for how Maria works. And that's what it looks like. So this is a plot. It's not a chip photo. It's a plot. It was 3-micron technology, about 24,000 transistors, ran at 7 megahertz. And fabricated by VLSI technology. And there's a special treat, all the annotations of what it looks like. So there's basically 4 big parts. In the bottom right is the line RAM, what we call the line RAM. So that's 2 scan line worth of data. One's being loaded while the other's being scanned out to the display. The DMA on the left side, DMA control on the bottom, and DMA PLA on the top did the DMA, direct memory access. So that's the Maria going out to memory and figuring out what it's supposed to do and generating all the graphics completely on its own, independent of the CPU. And then at the top we have the color RAM, which is the color palette, and the delay and sync, which is the analog-y stuff that generates the actual signal to generate the output. So, and there's this little teeny thing down in the bottom you can barely see is the control register. Now the software people doing the programming, they use this control register a lot, and so to them it's this big important part of the chip, right? The control register. And they would come, where's the control register? And we'd point out, no, it's this tiny little thing, and they'd be all crestfallen because they thought it was more important than it really was. All right, so what can it do? So this is asteroids, or as it was sometimes called 3D asteroids, because it has this, the asteroids do this sort of rotation thing that gives it this 3D aspect of it. And our code name for it was Meatballs in Space. Because when we first coded this up, all the asteroids were red. They were all one color, because you're just doing something quickly. And then, my God, they look like meatballs. And all of them. And they all look the same. So, Meatballs in Space. So, getting video? Audio?
Yep. Audio.
Getting audio?
Yeah.
Did you plug in your audio jack?
Yeah.
Is there an audio jack?
Yeah, there's an audio.
It doesn't go through HDMI?
No, it's going straight to projector, so you got to plug in
Oh,
your audio
well,
section.
where is it? In here somewhere? Oh, there we go. Okay. There we go. Yes, the wonders of TIA sound. So we'll get to sound in a minute, explaining how do we get away with that. All right. So Meatballs in Space. Maria could put a lot of stuff on the screen. This is Robotron. This was coded by Carlos Smith, along with others, and it was a very accurate recreation of Robotron. We'll play Robotron, and then go look at 7800 Robotron, and it's pretty good. So how many moving objects on the screen, you would call them sprites. And there's maybe 60 there, and Maria could do, I don't know, 80 or 100. It depended, the real limit is how many on one scan line of display. But pretty good. That's pretty good for 1.8 megahertz processor and 7 megahertz graphics. So it had this amazing capability to put a lot of stuff on the screen. This was the Maria 2. Maria 1 could put all that on the screen, but it couldn't move it around. So we knew we were headed the right direction. So Maria 2 allowed it to make workable games like that. Okay, sound. So we ran out of room on the die. We ran out of time to do the development. And so we had to take the sound logic out of Maria. So everything was TIA. But actually, if you have a lot of ROM and CPU to throw at it, TIA can actually do okay sound. Here's Ms. Pac-Man. Good. That works all right. It's Chris Rhodes music from Ms. Pac-Man, by the way. Chris, good job. But our solution was, you know what? We'll put an audio line on one of those extra pins on the cartridge, and we'll put an audio chip on every single cartridge. And that was our solution for sound. So we had to come up with an incredibly cheap audio chip that you could program that could generate your audio for you. And so we called it Mini Gumby. Where'd that come from? Well, the spring sound chip was called Gumby because Atari had Pokey, right? And who knows Pokey and Gumby, right? So of course we're going to come up with, yeah, all those old people know Pokey and Gumby. So our chip for the Spring project was going to be called Gumby. Well, if we're going to do a really cheap version, it would be Mini Gumby or just Mini. And so that was the idea. And we're actually very close to getting tape out on this silicon. So it was going to be an amazing sound for 7800 cartridges. We never got Mini into production, but there were 1 or 2 carts that actually did sound on the cartridge. And one of them was Ball Blazer, which actually used a Pokey. So there's a Pokey on every single Ball Blazer cartridge. Story behind this called The Song of the Grid by Peter Langston. It's an algorithmic composition, polyphonic sound. Ball Blazer. So, life at GCC. What's life at GCC like? We're at Athenaeum House, which is a renovated manufacturing facility in Kendall Square in Cambridge. It's a little company you may have heard of, Lotus. They were a little startup after us, and they were across the street. So here we are. This is John Rassick at one of the development stations, and this looks particularly staged because it was from one of our recruiting brochures. You can come up and look at later if you want to. And he's got his Contron microprocessor emulator, and he's got his Sony TV, and he's got his 3600 board on top of it, sitting on foam. And one of the reasons he looks confused is because he's debugging Centipede, but he's holding a Robotron printout. If you look at it really. And those of us in the know, on the top line of his Contron screen, it says, "He's dead, Jim." That was the symbol when the machine would hang up. He's dead. All right. Let's see what else we have. Oh, that is Tom Westberg on the left and Chris Rode on the right, and the Coca-Cola can, which fueled us all, on top of a printout of a plot of Maria. So these two, Tom and Chris, were the main architects behind the Maria chip design. And they're looking happy and pleased with themselves. This is the development room. Lots of Contron emulators, and oh yes, you see the Ms. Pac-Man mobile, which was designed. But yeah. There's another one on the right there. I don't know if that's a Ms. Pac-Man or something else.
No, that's.
I don't know what that one is. So, but that's. Must have been late at night because no one was there working. We did lots of arcade conversions. So of course you had to have the original game there if you're going to do Xevious for 2600 or PAM or whatever. So we played a lot, and Robotron was always a favorite. We had our fire pole. When we renovated our space, we put in a fire pole, and there's a whole other story about having a fire pole. Every Friday we had fire pole meetings. That's Kevin Kern on the left. And everyone would gather around the fire pole because, of course, there's like no email or Facebook or anything crazy like that. How did you find out what was going on? People had to talk to you face to face. So we would all sit around and figure out what was happening. And here we all are gathered around the fire pole. So this is August 1983. This is sort of at the peak of General Computer. We maxed out at like 150 people, I think. So, I mean, at this point, we've got the board design, the chip design, 14 cartridges, home computer development, in addition to the coin-op work that we're still doing. So it was a cool time to be working there at General Computer. So, all right, a few more things about the 3600. There's this what's called encryption or authentication or security aspect of the cartridges. May have heard about. What's that all about? Well, the main reason that came about is when somebody plugs in a cartridge, how does the board know if it's 2600 or 3600? How can it tell? And so at first we thought, well, there might be some way you can look for a particular, if you see a particular thing, you know it's a 2600 card. And it turned out there was no way to do it. So the idea was to put a checksum encrypted signature on the 3600 cartridges so that the base unit, when it powered up, it would go and look at the cartridge and say, oh, are you properly authenticated? If you are, you must be 3600. And it would lock into 3600 mode and never go back. So you could not program 3600 cartridges unless you had our secret encryption technique. And that was really attractive to Atari when we came up with that, because they were so annoyed with people like Activision and iMagic and Parker Brothers and everyone who was doing cartridges. Well, now they could control it. Nobody could do cartridges for this system without Atari's say-so. And that would prevent the, you know, see them in the museum over there, the adult carts. That was a real problem for Atari. And so now they have control of it. So that was another advantage to this. But mainly it got started was, how can you tell what kind of card it should be? 2600 or 3600. Because the machine's only in one mode or the other. Either it's doing 2600 emulation, or it's doing the new 3600 graphics. There was another cool idea we came up with, the high score cartridge. So the high score cartridge was a thing that you would plug in first, and then you would plug in your cartridge on top. And it has memory and battery backed up memory. So it would remember your high scores for you for 65 different games. So you could take your high score cartridge over to your friend's house and plug it into their game. Hey, see if you can beat my high score. So, so we thought this was a really cool idea. And there was software support in every cartridge to do this, that it would look to see, am I plugged into a high score card? And if so, it would interact with it and keep track of your scores. All right. Home computer, plug in a keyboard, carts with extra RAM, experiment kits. Oh, does the refrigerator light really go off when you close the door? You know, so you have a little sensor that would go in there and program it. And it was going to use all of the Atari 400, 800 peripherals. So that was kind of cool, that it could leverage all that. Lots of work was done on home computer, the 3600 home computer. So by November, we're already talking about the combo chip, TIA Maria. What's the actual name going to be? 2600 GC maybe for $109. At this point, Atari is still deluded in thinking 5200 is a viable product. And that the oh yeah, you guys have come up with this cool thing, but 5200 is still here at the top. And you've just given a little kicker to 2600. Like, yeah, fine. They really liked it though. And so by December, here's all these different things we're working on. New versions of Maria, because there were slight little problems in the Maria 2, a couple little fixes we had to do. Let's work on a PAL version for the Europeans. Let's work on a video disc interface. Mini Gumby's going to be done. Let's see. So a really early 3600, 7800s have this little expansion interface on the side. And that was to talk to the video disc. So we were going to do video disc games. We're working on that. Winter CES, we have a huge amount of product that we've generated from GCC that's being sold under the Atari name. So we all got to go, not all of those, but many of those were from GCC. And nobody really knows about General Computer, right? We're this little secret company out in Cambridge. We're doing development work for Atari, but nobody knows that. We haven't told anyone. We're completely secret. Except that the dolts at Atari left these stickers on the cartridge when they had them on the show floor at CES. You know, we would send these off to Atari. Hey, here's the latest version of our game. And they took those to CES. Sort of like, oh, who's this Douglas McRae, General Computer? It's like, okay, cat's out of the bag now. January, the Munitions Control Board had to approve our game, our system, because it had encryption. And can give you a whole talk about exactly how the encryption authentication worked, but because it was in there in those less enlightened days, we had to get permission to ship it. We started working with Lucasfilm, the Ball Blaster, which became Ball Blazer. It started out as Topsy-Turvy. And the official name got generated by Atari, 7800 ProSystem. All right, great. 7800. We were kind of attached to the 3600 name. And Doug McCrae would say, well, 7800 is just twice 3600. And then he'd wait a beat for you to like do the math. That's the kind of humor Doug had. All right. Final acceptance of the Maria chip here. I'll come and look at that. So, Maria. Game standards documents, I have those up here too for the software people, how to program the cart. By February, things are really ramping up now. Atari says, oh, we're going to make 200,000 of these. We're going to do 1 million of these for 1984. 1 million. And 3 to 4 million over the next few years. Great. Okay. So for Christmas, I mean, think about this. If you're going to have a product to sell for Christmas, you got to have it done by April so that you're in production by June, so that it's at Toys R Us by July, or getting ready for it, right? So by April, they kept going back and forth about whether the ROM on here, which does the authentication stuff, whether it included a game, so that you could play a game with nothing plugged in. You just power it up and it would play. Oh, we'll do Centipede. Fine. Oh, no, let's do Pole Position 2. Fine. All right, we did. Now, finally, they said, no. Just security, and it'll be a separate plug. All right. More updates to the keyboard, new ways to do the home computer. May 21st, huge press event on the USS Intrepid in New York City. Announcing the 7800 Pro system to the world. And also announcing that the 5200 has been canceled. Same day. All right. So that's May 21st. And then in June, it's going to be CES, and we're going to really show this thing off. So June CES, Atari will be officially introducing the 7800 Pro system. And here's the list of products that were being shown off, all of which were generated by General Computer in Cambridge. So there's 13 or 14 different cartridges, the home computer stuff, the high score cartridge, so anyway, off we go. What to say? Atari's having a tough time right now, and so a big thing was, who designed this? If we're standing there at Atari's booth with an Atari badge on, they're like, who are you guys? And so it was all this about, please don't talk about Atari, and please be circumspect about who you are and where you live. But look at the bottom, $149 this is going to sell for. Okay, that's good. We can make a lot. General Computer is going to get some good royalty checks from Atari for this. We're pretty happy about it. Here's the press release. This is a really big deal. 7800 Pro system, extraordinary graphics capability. Cool. All right. The computer keyboard operates with 4K of RAM, expandable, state-of-the-art for video games. Toys R Us loves it. So this is a big deal, right? The high score cartridge. And they announced the 5200 adapter. For those poor sods who bought a 5200. You would buy one of these. This is, I think, the only one that exists. This is a hand-built prototype that you plug into your 5200, and it plays 7800 cartridges. And of course, it also plays 2600 cartridges, right? So this was the how are we going to get out of the 5200 market as well? We'll sell this. Right? What could possibly go wrong? Jack. So early June, we're bombing ahead with this thing and ready to go, and we're going to build tons of them. And Jack Trammell buys Atari, and Jack business is war, and he basically takes over Atari and is like, done. He was actually willing to build 7800, but at an incredibly low price point. He's like, oh yeah, we'll sell 100,000 of them for Christmas, this Christmas. $50. And we were like, really? Jack, how much is General Computer going to get out of that? We did all the development work. Jack's like, there's only enough money here for one person. Me. Okay, Jack. So, done. It's done. So where do all those Contron development systems go? This is what it looks like when you shut down your development. And so 7800 is gone. But is it really gone? Is it really gone? So 1986, Atari is like, well, what the hell? We got some of these things in the warehouse. We might as well sell them. What the hell? And so this is 1988, top in Toyland. There's the 7800, ranked number 8. And 3 of those are Nintendo, so really, they should all be lumped together. It makes you wonder what would happen, what could have been if 7800 had come out in 1984. Would Nintendo have been able to get into the market the way it did a year later? Everyone was like, oh, video games, they're gone, they're dead, they'll never come back. It was a fad, not realizing another crop of 8-year-olds would be coming along. So, and people are still writing new carts for 7800, which just blows my mind. People out on the floor. Here's our new game for 7800. That's just insane. Here's products that were designed by GCC. So if you see your favorite Atari product there, it came from us. That's about $500 million worth of revenue for Atari that we generated for them. And I wonder if the video game crash might have happened a year earlier if Manny had not called us up to say, hey, can you guys do cartridges? So we did. Anyway, so that's the quick 7800. Thank you very much. I don't know if we have time for a few questions. No?